Well, one of us is going to have fun. Cleo's going to have a blast being in this video. You say hello, Cleo. No? Okay, she's embarrassed now. Let's talk about Indiana Jones and the White Witch by Martin Caidin. I'd rather be holding a used colostomy bag than this. This book starts off not long after the last book, Sky Pirates. Gail Parker and Indiana Jones are still palling around. They're still flying airplanes together because, of course, it's a Martin Caidin book, so it has to have airplanes in it. When they fly over Gail's home, her village of witches, because, yes, that's a thing in this, and they realize they're under attack by no other than the villains from the last book. They return. It's not very important. We really don't get their perspective ever in this book, and it's a humongous waste of time bringing them back. But I guess Martin Caidin was like, yeah, I didn't kill the main villain in the last book, so we can bring him back here. Reason for attacking Gail's village? Oh, it's to get a map to some gold that's in America that has Vatican gold that was... It's so convoluted. Let me back up a hair. So, there are so many layers to how bad this book is. For instance, we've got Indiana Jones. He's in the book. Those aren't in the book. But I guess that's Excalibur, which is in this book. And no, it is not the artifact Indiana Jones is going after. I guess that's Caitlin, who is our White Witch. So there is a White Witch, I guess. For having all these knights and stuff, I thought, oh, we're going to be doing another medieval Europe thing. No, we're going after gold that's from the Vatican and from Great Britain that was loaned to the Confederacy, from the United States of America during the Civil War, that has gone missing in Florida, I think. I think that's where the climax of this book takes place. We find this out, of course, from our good old Treadwell and old head of British Museum / London University in his wheelchair. He's in this again. They neither of them really they don't really do anything, so I don't get why they're here. Why we bring them back? We could have had anyone. It's just to show Indy and Gale still work for the British government begrudgingly, which is really, really annoying and pointless. So is bringing back our villains from the last book. We do get our villain, our main villain, talking to Indy, which leads to nowhere. Honestly, Indy, once again, it's like Martin Caidin doesn't know how to write Indiana Jones, so he tries not to focus on him, and will focus on, like, Gale, for instance, or her pal, the White Witch, Caitlin. So Caitlin is palling around with Excalibur, as well as the sheath of Excalibur, which can heal people, which is more important than Excalibur. So you'd think, like, here's my whole thing with this. Why does it have to be the sword of Excalibur? Why? Wouldn't that be its own adventure to find that? If she has the sheath, that's like whatever. It's to prove that she can get shot and heal, because it has a healing property. But they took the sheath apart and made body armor out of it, which is dumb and very convenient to the plot. Anyway, we do have some, instead of like airplane porn that was like in the last book, We have some Zeppelin porn, yeah. And I'm not talking about the band. I'm talking an actual Zeppelin. They have a fight on a Zeppelin, and it is the only entertaining thing in this book because it felt like an Indiana Jones movie. It's the only time I got an Indiana Jones feel in this whatsoever. Indy, of course, it's like, I sometimes think Martin Caidin just read the Temple of Doom novelization, where in that, Indy is kind of like mysterious, and we never get his perspective on anything other than him being like drugged when he drinks the blood of the Kali. That's like the only time we really get Indy's perspective on anything in that book. Which was fine in that because Willie Scott and Short Round were both very interesting in there. And James Caan's a good author. Whereas in this, it is more so Martin Caidin can't write Indiana Jones. He writes him as sort of like a James Bond, but not a good James Bond. And like he gets the only part of his Indiana Jones character he gets down is his skepticism about like magic. There's a lot of talks, circular talks about magic and fairies and stuff in this that really don't serve much of a purpose to the plot. Although the magic exists. And there's a lot of magic in this book, and it's kind of ridiculous. I hate, and I've talked about this before, I don't like when the indie love interest can do magic. It just cheapens things and like takes away from Indy's like skepticism about it. It's like the love interest in Fate of Atlantis is a psychic. And like it is treated that she's actually a psychic by the end of it. And I didn't like that, and I really don't like all the witchcraft Wicca stuff in this. Like, why are main characters doing it? Like, it takes away from like the mysteries of there's other unworldly things out there. Like, it'd be like if in like, let's take Temple of Doom as an example. It's like, what if like Short Round could rip people's hearts out too instead of Molaram? Like that'd be weird, and like we'll go for a less morbid thing. It's like, what if like people could like a main character in Last Crusade, like let's take Sala for instance. It's like, what if Sala had the power of the Holy Grail? You know, he could heal Henry Jones Sr. at the end. It's like, okay, what's the point? And that's what you get when you have people that are magical in this. It becomes like the gold afterthought. It's an absolute afterthought. What this book boils down to is Caitlin wants revenge because the villains tortured her mother to death. Okay, that's fine. In the hands of a better author, that would be interwoven in with the finding the gold. Because the gold is inconsequential to just stopping the villain. Like, it's like if Indy didn't care about the Ark of the Covenant. Like, he didn't care to find it at all. He just wanted to stop the Nazis. You know, it just takes away from that. It's just like, it just doesn't work. In fact, it's in the last like the second to last chapter, they just happen, Indy literally trips over the gold. I won't say how the gold's been hidden for so long, because that'd be too much spoilers, but I mean, they do find it. It is something, and that's like one of the few positives, is it's actually a treasure that they take back with them. But here's the other like big thing. So I thought bringing Gail Parker back would mean that Indy and Gail would have like a relationship, like a romantic relationship. So we really haven't had one since maybe, I mean, if we squint at it, Mara and Unicorn's Legacy, that was 2 books ago. but really Morrow betrays Indy, so it's more like Deidre, his wife. So it's been years at this point. It's been several years since Indy's had like a romantic like love interest. Even if we're counting like say the Indiana Jones Adventures comics, like he doesn't have like a fling with like the woman that he teams up with in that first volume, and I don't remember there even being a woman in the second one in the Invincible Ruby. So I don't know, and I think technically Invincible Ruby happens after this. It's like a year after this because this is all in 1930, which is so weird to me to have these back-to-back indie adventures, and they just don't. They're nothing adventures. This one, like the villains are dispatched in like a random way that's like it's not set up well, and then has to be explained afterwards, which is dumb. That's like the whole thing in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where they're like they explain the aliens are interdimensional aliens and not extraterrestrials. Cleo, you're just so. See, I am naming other things here, other indie stories. Even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I genuinely think is better than this. This is so bad. And then to top it all off, we not only get a forced, like, potential, like, Caitlin and Indy are gonna get together in the next book, but we also tease another adventure. And Gale is missing, as in, like, she's just written out of the book in the last chapter. She's not even in the last chapter, and it's so dumb and just pointless. And we got to get into the fact there's only 2 Martin Caidin books, because there is a lot of setup for a third that never came to fruition. Max McCoy did his own thing, and that's for the better. Martin Caidin died not long after this book came out. I think within a year. He was getting very sick during this book. And I've dogged on this book a lot, and it's just very bad. It's a bad book, period. Like, it's incompetently written, except for he has his gun terminology down correctly. But, I mean, like, it's repetitive, it's nonsensical, like, it's just overall a bad book. The one thing it has going over for it, like, compared to Sky Pirates, is that it has some archaeology in it. Not a lot. Not a lot, but it's an archaeological thing. It's a treasure hunt, so I'll take it. It has artifacts in it that are actual artifacts and not faked artifacts like the previous book. It's just I don't get why Lucasfilm greenlit these books, like these Martin Caidin books, other than they didn't care because Indiana Jones wasn't selling well. But like, here's the thing. Like, I don't know how they published another 4 Indiana Jones books after White Witch. I mean, that's not a slight against Max McCoy. I will actually be reviewing one of his first Indiana Jones book next. But it's just, these are so bizarrely bad. These are some of the worst 90s Bantam era, like, Lucasfilm books I've ever read. These may be worse than most of the bad Bantam Star Wars books. Where, like, I don't get the point. I don't get the point. It's like a weird experiment to have Indiana Jones just be a spy. And he barely does any spy stuff in The White Witch. At least in Sky Pirates, there was some espionage and stuff like that. But it's not Indiana Jones. I wonder if we're starting to get George Lucas's scraps from young Indiana Jones, because we'll see that in the Max McCoy books. We start getting ideas that were that were for the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles that never came to be, and George Lucas scrapped. Also, stuff from Indiana Jones and the Saucermen from Mars will appear in there too, because this is when George Lucas slowly gave up on the Indiana Jones IP. I mean, at this point, we're getting to where Dark Horse just stopped making Indiana Jones comics. We're getting into the mid 90s now. The Indiana Jones hype has kind of died. Indy 4 keeps being teased, but like it just keeps getting pushed back. And it becomes kind of a dark period for Indiana Jones fans. Um, it's kind of a shame, but we can see here that this is the peak of we just put the Indiana Jones IP on it and sell it. It's so bad. Honestly, it's a 0 out of 5. It's one of the worst books I've ever read. I'm still hyped for Great Circle despite this book, and I actually read another Indiana Jones book after this, and I've been reading some Indiana Jones comics. So if I weren't a super Indiana Jones fan, I don't think I would have read this. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say if you here's the way I look at the Indiana Jones, the English Indiana Jones books. I'm not going to talk about the German exclusive stuff or like Young Indiana Jones, that sort of thing. We're just going to focus on English, American Indiana Jones novels. If you want the transition between the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles and the Indiana Jones we see in the movies, you read the 6 Rob McGregor books. If you want just fun, pulpy movie-like adventures, you read the Max McCoy books. As for Martin Caidin, this is what you read when you're like, well, I've read all of that, and I just have to finish the all of the Bantam books. What do I read? You read these two. Like, sure, they have continuity, whether rather forced continuity with Rob McGregor's stuff, but like, it's just bad. It's not worth your time to check out, especially because like getting physical copies of these Indiana Jones books is pretty expensive now. So, anyway, have a nice day.